Today is a fantastic day for fairness, ladies and gentlemen. If you still support the meritocracy, like I do, and like anybody who's ever read a history book should do, this is a great day. The only people this story is bad news for are the perpetually lazy and or stupid, the human beings that happen to be lucky enough to have a protected characteristic. If you're a human sausage, you're out of luck. Affirmative action. US Supreme Court overturns race-based college admissions. So there you go. If you have the get up and go of a lethargic slug and the IQ of a chicken McNugget, I guess you're not going to college then, son, are you? Okay, this story is good and it's been a very long time coming. I only feel sorry for the hundreds of thousands of people that have been massively stitched up by it in the last 2 decades. If you were unlucky enough to be Korean or Japanese and you wanted to go to Harvard or Yale, you're fresh out of luck, son. And if you happen to look like me and you want to go to an elite university, well, you best be Doogie Howser, because you ain't getting in. An activist from Students for Fair Admissions celebrates the opinion. There she is. Oh, that's weird. Does she not count as a person of colour? No, doesn't count. If you're a commie activist, you decide when somebody happens to be a person of colour, and if they're a little bit inconvenient, then they aren't. She's whiter than me. She's just stood in a particularly large shadow. The US Supreme Court has ruled that race can no longer be considered a factor in university admissions. The landmark ruling upends decades-old US policies on so-called affirmative action, also known as positive discrimination. What's positive about it? You're a Korean American with straight A's, a work ethic, and a member of about 6 dozen after-school clubs, and you even play the cello, and you don't get admitted because some bloke from Nigeria happens to have a slightly more in-depth tan than you. Is that fair? He does better down the beach, so he should get your university place, even though the last book he read had cardboard pop-up structures in it. President Biden said he strongly disagreed with the court's decision and that the US would need a new path forward consistent with the law. And I strongly disagreed that the US president can go 10 minutes without falling over or snapping off a foot of brown cable in the trousers of his designer suit. But everyone's allowed an opinion. The Supreme Court justices sided with an organisation called Students for Fair Admissions, founded by a conservative activist, Edward Blum. The group argued that Harvard's race-conscious admissions policy violated Title VI, the 1964 Civil Rights Act, bars discrimination based on race, colour or national origin. John Roberts wrote, many universities have wrongly concluded that the touchstone of an individual's identity is not challenges bested, skills built or lessons learned, but the colour of their skin. How can you even argue against it? It just shows up the blatant double standards. It requires mental gymnastics, like the same people, the insane war, who say that al-Shami begs, who the vast majority of my subscribers disagreed with me about, because I said, in accordance with my centrist liberal principles, I believe that she should return for a trial because she's only 16 when she went, and 16 is young. I'm basing this off the fact I was an idiot when I was 16. But that's another video. The point is, I agree that people that are 16 are very young and shouldn't be relied upon to make important decisions. But the same people that talk as if she's an innocent victim and she's not accountable because she's too young, the same people who make that argument that this 16-year-old terrorist is too young to be held accountable, then perform mental gymnastics like Simone Biles if she snorted 8 lines before she went on the crash mats. They perform these gymnastics that say the 16-year-old terrorist is too young to make decisions, but the 11-year-old who wants to change gender or smoke bloke or whatever other deranged thing they're coming out with is definitely old enough and definitely clever enough and definitely mature enough to make life-altering decisions. It's completely upside down, and the same can be said here. As per the Justice's comments, wrongly concluded that challenges bested, skills built or lessons learned are not the touchstone of an individual's identity, but the colour of their skin. To say anything other than that is disingenuous and ludicrous. They know it, you know it, and I know it. You can't simultaneously call yourself an anti-racist activist and then demand that Korean Americans or Japanese Americans or yes, Irish Americans or Italian Americans should be treated differently just because of their ancestry. Think about it. Harvard's admission process rests on the pernicious stereotype that a black student can usually bring something that a white person can't. Justice Clarence Thomas, who is himself black, said such programmes were patently unconstitutional. And it's the same from the likes of Candace Owens, and the same from the likes of Thomas Sowell, and the same from anyone who happens to be black, who has a strong work ethic and a high IQ, and as such, a conservative mindset. To have a society built purely off merit and effort is an anti-racist society. So you know what that means? Conservative-leaning people like me are anti-racists. And woke, clueless, commie activists like you, well, not you personally, I'm sure there's one or two watching, are not anti-racists. They are prejudiced, they are bigoted, and they do have less common sense than a particularly suicidal lemming. So don't listen to them, alright? Let me know what you think. It's a great story. I will put the whole thing in the link for you to read at your leisure, if you must. It's the BBC. We could bulldoze Broadcasting House while the 9 o'clock news was on, and I don't think we would lose anything of value. But anyway, let me know your thoughts. Thanks for watching. Toodle pip.